Welcome to the Disaster Trade Podcast, the podcast helping you develop Forex trading skills for more freedom. I'm your host, it's Kret. Let's get started right away. So, Franklin Niambela, welcome to the podcast. How's it going today?
Yeah, very well. How are you, Etienne?
Awesome. Good to connect with you and good to have a chance to talk with you today, of course. I know you were ring from something pretty tough. I know you've been sick for the past few days or the past few weeks, but glad to see you back, of course. Today, I wanted to be able to discuss with you. You've been funded by a few prop firms so far, and I want to kind of go back, ask you some questions about what you've been doing before that, what went well, what didn't go well, and what was your story like as a trader. So, for people who don't know you now, tell me a bit about who you are and what you do these days.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you to yourself, Etienne, and the Prop Fund 5%ers, which between you guys working together, that's where this opportunity came from. I'm a massive fan of your work. I've actually watched a lot of your videos, right? And of course, in the beginning, I started with the podcast, so I've watched many of your videos. I have a lot of respect for your work and a lot of love for your work. And then later on, I'll talk a little bit more about why that is. So yeah, my name is Franklin, 27 years old, based out here in the UK. I first came across trading in 2015. And between that time and 2017, I didn't really know much about trading. And of course, I didn't know that I didn't know much about trading. I thought I was doing absolutely fine. I started off with the concept of that you buy something that is really low, right? You sell it when it is high, all right? You sell something that is high, you buy it back when it is low. And that's pretty much all I did was for those 2 years. Now, considering that's all I knew, I think I was very fortunate in a sense of I didn't experience any big losses. So I didn't blow up any accounts or anything like that. But at the same time, I didn't make any progress, right? So for that period, there was absolutely no major progress in terms of profits and so on. But everything changed, right? Everything changed around 2018 when I came across Desire to Trade podcast. And that's one of the reasons why I have so much respect and so much love for your work, because it truly was the turning point of my trading career. And I'm not ashamed to say that without that, I probably would be still trading with that concept that you that you buy low and you sell high. So I'm very grateful for that. And a little bit later on, I'd like to talk a little bit more about how it actually changed my trading and exactly how it did it, because I think that's quite important for individuals to understand how I took that on and how it helped me. Now, from that point on, having worked with a few of the individuals that you actually interviewed, I then went on to create my own trading system. And it was funny because originally I was expecting to work with them and then take their trading system and use it as my own, but I never did that. I ended up working with multiple of them, taking bits of what I had learned from them and creating my own trading system and then actually becoming profitable. So I think towards the end of 2019 is when I became profitable. And I started to work with prop funds. And coming into 2020, I was actually trading a 6-figure account, right? That was going well. I had some success around that. And then all of a sudden, I had the idea that I could duplicate my income by basically still doing the same work. And how I could do that is by working with multiple prop firms. And of course, again, because I was still listing and I was still going off a lot of the things that I was hearing from your interviews, I could see that other people were doing that too, right? So I did that too, right? I started to work with multiple prop firms and increased the amount of money that I was managing, and it's been going pretty well. So now into 2021, I'm working with 4 prop firms, and I'm experiencing a lot of success, and there isn't really a major change in working with multiple prop firms compared to one. All I needed to do was adjust my risk management because they have different risk management parameters and so on. So yeah, really enjoy that. That's what I'm currently doing now. So one of the things that had such a profound effect through your work was that it inspired me to help others, right? And this is probably now the biggest thing I do in a sense of, so in 2020, when I became a 6-figure trader, I obviously was around other traders who were also trying to learn and so on, because I wasn't trading. I wasn't trying to learn trading alone. I had a group that we started. It was on Telegram. So while I was finding my own success, I started sharing that success with the others. And all of a sudden, everybody around me was now also finding their own success. Everybody around me was also now successful in working with prop firms and so on. So that group grew to, I think there's a point where it was 600 subscribers strong on Telegram. And we then turned that into an official community called AtrioFX, which is what we have at the moment. So I am a co-founder of AtrioFX, which is a big part of what I do. But of course, I also work with multiple prop firms.
Awesome. Cool. So let's go back in time and tell me about what made you want to go into trading in the first place. What was that first thought of trying out trading and kind of jumping into learning more about trading?
I think if I said it wasn't money, I'd be lying. Because I'm assuming a lot of people, that's usually one of the first motivation to go into trading. So yeah, it was my own. But also, when I looked at traders and what they were doing with their lives, and what other things that they were experiencing, I noticed that these guys had a lot of freedom. So freedom of time, of course, freedom of money, and freedom of location. So that was probably so combining all of that together was the biggest motivation for me. And of course, it was possible. It was being done. So yeah.
Cool. And so you mentioned it before, but what was your first reflex when you wanted to be able to learn to trade? Did you kind of go online, find some YouTube videos, or kind of go to different blogs? How did you try to learn trading in the first place?
Well, first it was by my housemate who actually told me about trading. Tried to kind of get an understanding from him a little bit, but of course he can't teach me everything. And you get a lot of that at the moment, in a sense of where somebody knows you're trading and they come to you and says, "Oh, teach me how to trade," or "Teach me trading," and it's like it's basically telling somebody, "Teach me how to be a doctor." Like you can't do that. You
in
can't.
2 hours. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So I realized that very, very quickly with him. So I stopped bothering him and I went onto YouTube. And then I caught myself in that cycle of where you're watching multiple individuals, right? Multiple systems. So I think that was probably one of my biggest mistakes, actually, right? That I never, stuck with somebody. I never, stuck with one system. The fact that I was moving around, that confused me a lot more. It taught me very little. And it's almost like they gave me a small piece of the pie or a small piece of a really big pie, right? So I never really got to grasp. But of course, desire to trade changed that for me.
Awesome. At what point did you realize that you had to do something different to be able to get better at trading? Was it like one day you wake up and you decide to do something different, or was it something that was progressive, or did it happen by accident one day that you?
I think it was a combination of me having a strong passion, so that burning desire to want to be a trader, to want to improve, but at the same time realizing that I wasn't making progress, right? So again, I'm not a big, I was gonna say I'm not a big fan of law of attraction, but it almost seemed like my desire attracted that information because that I came across you for the very first time on YouTube. So that was a platform where I spent a lot of my time, obviously trying to trade. So when I came across your podcast and I was seeing individuals that were, finding a lot of success, I was like, that's where I should be, not here. I shouldn't be here for this long. So I'm doing something wrong. And of course, the more I listened, the more I got to really understood that, oh, wow, there's something called trading education. What the hell is that? What is a stop loss? What is a take profit? What is an indicator? And so on. So I think, yeah, it was that really gave me the idea that I needed to change it. There's a better way out there.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned you've been connecting with people on the podcast. What are some of the guests or the people that I've interviewed that you kind of related to or that you like to learn from?
To be honest, I think every single one of them. And even though, in a sense of they're not all forex, but trading as a concept, regardless of what instrument you trade, it's exactly the same, right? Or there's a large similarity. I can't say exactly the same, but there's a large similarity. The first one that probably had the biggest profound impact on me was Mandy, when you guys were talking about psychology. So I was already a student of psychology, and I think that's my advantage in trading. I believe everybody brings in an advantage in trading, whether it be risk management, whether it be an interest in finance or psychology, whatever it may be. Mine was psychology, so I was able to connect with her very early on, and I still watch her podcast to this day. But the first one that I worked with was a guy called Barry Burns, right? Guy called Barry Burns, and I think it started around towards the end of 2018. You had a guy called Barry Burns on around October times. So yeah, I worked with him. I also worked with Naveen Prithani. So those two, I worked with those two for quite some time.
Awesome. What was the thing that you were lacking? So you mentioned psychology, of course, which is a big difference, but what are
Mm.
some things you were lacking to be able to kind of get to that next level of trading?
I was lacking everything. I was literally lacking everything. Remember, the only concept I was going by was where to buy and where to sell. So there was no idea of how to analyze the charts. There was no how to manage risk. There was no how to use my actual psychology in trading. There was none of that. And obviously, my trading system was so simple and it was so basic that it no wonder why I never found profound success. Right. So coming to spending time and listening to those guys who you interviewed, all of a sudden I realized that, huh, there's actually a proper way of doing something, right? There's actually a trading strategy, and this is a trading strategy, right? What does your opportunity look like, right? Where do you enter, right? Where is your stop loss? Where do you take profit, right? Is an opportunity to scale in? Is there not, and so on. How do you manage risk? Exactly what is risk? How do you apply that? And of course, how do you deal with the emotions, right? Which is obviously one of the biggest things in trading, right? How do you then, once you have a plan, how do you actually follow that plan and not, stray away? So yeah, I was missing quite a lot, right? Quite a lot. And I quickly realized, although I was listening to over 100 different people speak, well, sorry, 100 podcasts, um, I realized that overall they were talking about the same three things, right? Risk management, trading strategy, psychology. So that's where I was. That's where I learned that is where I should focus. And by focusing on that, I was able to make profound progress.
Awesome. When did you know that you were ready to go after getting funded?
It was, I think I was 6 months into being profitable, and I actually felt comfortable. So I would see an opportunity, and I wouldn't think twice whether I would take it or not. Right. And that sense of comfortability then assured me that, hey, you are ready to kind of move up, right? You are ready to take on these challenges and actually start managing accounts that were a lot larger. And I also found an easiness in managing larger accounts, right? One of the things that I picked up from one of the guys that you interviewed was that not to focus on the money, but the percentages of the accounts. So with that all in me, I felt really ready to actually go on and start. And I was right, right? I've never looked back since.
So tell me about your experience through the challenge. Was it something you find was easy with the skills you had built, or was it something pretty tough? And did you have any other obstacle that you faced?
I found it easier than I thought, actually. So again, because I found I chose a mentor and I was going through a mentor way before the challenges. I learned for example, the rule of 1% risk management. So me risking 1% per trade was something that I was very comfortable with. And when I combined that I'm a swing trader, so I don't take that many trades, it worked very, very well for me. I think one of the things that I found slightly difficult, especially in the early stages, was adjusting to the amount because I started at 100K. So I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to put in my all. And I'm quite a confident person. So it played to my advantage. So once I adjusted to seeing the numbers constantly fluctuate, and I think it's one thing you saying, oh, I'm going to be great, I'm going to be okay. But once you're in that situation, it's then like, oh, okay. So after a small adjustment into that, I was able to actually find some success. Now it's important for me to mention that I didn't pass my first challenge, right? I didn't pass my first challenge. There were things that I had to learn in terms of, again, emotions, right? Because when you're seeing so much money there, so something that you've never seen before, you're now challenged emotion. You're challenged slightly different in terms of your emotions, and that was something that I had to quickly adjust. And after speaking to the individuals that I was working with at the time, and a mentor of mine, yeah, it turned out to be that was all that I needed to adjust in order to pass the next challenge.
Interesting. So I know people who do the challenge once and they fail
Mm.
and they don't want to go back to it again. They like quit doing challenge after. What made you want to go back to doing it again?
Because I realized that I had a profitable system. I realized that my risk management was well. And I realized that a large amount of my psychology was also good. So by understanding that, I also realized that there was very little that I needed to tweak. right? So it wasn't a big shock to be thinking, oh my God, I'm completely out of my league, and I wasn't comfortable. There was a sense of comfortableness in the beginning, but of course I was able to get a lot more comfortable after a week or two. So there wasn't much for me to change. And as a result of that, I felt a lot more comfortable trying again. And I would have tried again and again and again. So I think confidence also plays a big part in that.
Nice. So you've got the capital from 5%ers first. How was it then to kind of keep the capital? Because like one big battle was getting the challenge to pass it, and the other battle is being able to keep the capital for long term. So how was the game of being able to keep the capital?
So funny enough, 5%ers or fivers, they weren't the first one that I worked with. The first one that I worked with was FTMO. I worked with 5%. I had the idea of working 5%ers earlier this year. So in my community, we started a service or a group that was to focus on working with traders that were interested in working with investors such as 5%ers. So in that group, we focus in allowing the traders to develop the right skills required, because you do need slightly different skills to working with investors compared to working with your own money. So in the advices that we had given, right, in the suggestion that we were given of the skills that they should learn and how they should go about it, I had the idea of not just providing those advices and suggestions, but also by showing them that those advices and suggestions work, right? So that was when I embarked to work with 5%ers. So the entire process of working with 5%ers is completely transparent, right? So they see every trade, they see every analysis, they see how we journal, they see how we manage the trade once we're on there. Everything is completely transparent. And again, by that time, I was already a seasonal trader, or I was already comfortable with working with large amounts and working with prop funds. So for me personally, it wasn't really different to me, to be honest. At the same time, if I now go back to when I did make the jump from 100,000 to 200, 300, 400, 600, and so on, again, because I was focusing on the percentage of the capital rather than the money, there wasn't a big difference. I was actually more excited to manage higher than where I was. I was almost too comfortable where I was. I was constantly aiming and dreaming and thinking about managing even more, which is why I went on to work with multiple prop funds.
Awesome. So how do you go about picking the right prop firm? Did you already know which one you want to work with? Or some traders are not sure which prop firm to go with. There are like many differences, many things to do that are of course the same, but some differences. So how did you go about picking the right one to work with?
Very important question. And I think the things that I considered was the way I traded as a swing trader, but at the same time, the risk parameters that a particular prop firm offers. And there are, a range of different ones. And they haven't always been the best. And I think now we're sort of seeing the prop firms being a lot more lenient, right? They're allowing us to have a lot more space to move in terms of risk management. So starting with FTMO, of course, that for me was the standard, right? That 1-to-1 ratio, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anything that was better than that, or anything that was around similar to that, that was what I was interested in. I never cared so much about the profit share, right? I have the mentality that money will come, right? At some point, money will come, and if I'm a good trader, I will make money regardless. So I never mind. I never had a problem with sharing my profits 50-50, even though FTMO were offering me 70%. And of course, as long as I had heard good things about that company, as long as I knew enough of the trading process and the experiences from other people, I was more than happy to work with them and at least give them a go.
Did you have any issue with the 30-day challenge with FTMO? The fact that you have 30 days maximum to complete the challenge?
I didn't, because I'm risking 1%, and because historically, looking at my journal, there were many months of where I was producing 10%. That was more than fine. Yeah, it actually worked in my favor. So yeah, I had no problems with that. But at the same time, when I was looking at 5%, I was like, wow, there's a much better there's a much better parameter out there, because obviously they give you 6 months. But I was more than happy with 30 days. Of
Cool,
course, it was
cool.
a challenge, but because I had done it previously, I didn't do it every single month. But because I had done it previously, I was confident enough in taking that risk, which
Mhm.
obviously paid off.
Have you seen any kind of differences between prop firms that people would have to be aware of? Anything that maybe you don't see on the website, but that you kind of notice after you join the prop firm?
No, not really, actually. I think I'm fortunate enough to have had very good experiences with prop firms. I've never had anything to complain about. Of course, systems sometimes may not reflect the correct amount, but that's not something to be shouting to the world about. It happens, right? But in terms of support, in terms of me having access or me executing, I've had very, very good experiences personally. I've heard of horrors, but personally, I haven't experienced.
Awesome. So I'm sure people are going to ask in the comment section for sure what kind of system you trade, what's your trading style. So if you want to maybe go over that a little bit, that would be useful for people to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted that I've worked with, all sorts of trading systems, but maybe not. So I consider the trading systems to be parts of two categories. Number one, reversal, and then number two, continuation. So I have worked with trading systems that belong in both categories. And I found the most success in continuation, and that's what I do right now. So my trading system looks to find a trend. So it works with the trend that is going towards a particular direction. But I'm also looking to take advantage of that trend changing direction so I can get in at the earliest stages, right? So I'm anticipating a change of direction. So I'm looking at a current trend and I'm then deciding, hey, is this trend, is it gaining momentum or is it losing momentum? Once I have an idea that it is losing momentum and then it changes direction and then shows that it has even more momentum going towards this brand new direction, that is when I would get involved. So, and of course, the moment it changes into a new direction, that trading strategy then becomes continuation. So I'm not anticipating a reversal until the trend actually changes direction. And once it does and shows momentum, that's when I'm more than happy to get involved.
Cool. Do you have any particular kind of favorite setups or patterns or indicators that you like to use?
So I use no indicators at all. So it's pure price action. And again, I have used indicators in the past, but personally, I haven't had much success with them. I have friends that have had incredible amount of success with indicators. Personally, I have not. I know you yourself, Etienne, you use an indicator or two, and you've had success with that. I think Bollinger Bands I've seen on your charts
Yes.
quite a lot.
Mhm.
I've never had the fortunes of working well with an indicator, so I'm completely price action. But I am thinking about whether maybe that's somewhere that I should go into because one of the things that I realize is with where trading is going right now, where individuals are creating algorithms and so on, it seems like one of the best ways to create an algorithm is to trade with indicators or to program something that would act like an indicator. So that's one of the things that I'd love to pick your brain about. What is that true? The best way to create an algorithm is to have some sort of an indicator or work with an indicator, or can an algorithm be created purely from price action? Because I haven't met somebody yet who has created an algorithm purely from price action.
Yeah, price action itself is tough because like you couldn't really code any kind of support or resistance areas. That's really hard to code. But candlesticks are pretty easy to code. Like you can look at the highs, the close, the lows, all that stuff. That's really easy to code. So if you can have a pattern with this, then that definitely makes sense to code it. But that might be more scalping, not really swing trading. So it will definitely
Right,
vary.
right.
It's definitely tough to code just price action. If you look at like zones, if you look at supply demand, that's really, really difficult to code for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, makes sense. Yeah. So again, I'm not surprised, but I am still looking. Right. I think at some point I would like to work with indicators again and just give them a go, because I realize that that's where the future is, or there's a large probability that that is where the future is. So I am focusing on that. But at the moment, I am completely pure price action. So I trade at the moment only four pairs. So AUD USD, USD JPY, Euro USD, and Euro JPY. The reason that is because from backtesting, those pairs work best with my strategy. Right? There's no point me trading every pair that's out there if it doesn't work well. And I didn't just wake up one morning and said, "Hey, I'm going to trade those four, and leave everything else aside." Right?
Yeah.
So after back testing and obviously collecting that data, and I really can't stress enough how important it is to collect data. And this is again one of the things that I heard from your interviews again and again and again and again, how these guys were constantly collecting data, and then they were making their decisions upon that data, not a hunch, not what somebody said, and so on. Of course, you can have a hunch later on with the experience that you may have gained over 10, 15 years. But in the beginning stages where I am now, I consider myself, even though I'm 6 years into still being in the beginning stage, it's important that your decisions are made from data. So looking at my data, I was able to identify that these pairs work well. So I will only focus on these pairs. And it's worked out very well for me so far. But I am
Nice.
constantly looking at other pairs.
Yeah, you gotta always test and find new data anyway, for sure.
Absolutely.
What kind of time frame do you look at to trade? Is it like a multiple time frame thing, or are you using only one time frame?
At the moment, only time frame. So everything happens in the 1 hour time frame. Again, I've tried multiple time frame analysis, and I haven't had much success. And I don't know whether I'm lazy, but I also find it's slightly more complex, slightly more tedious to start from the weekly, daily, 4 hour, 1 hour, and so on. So I found a lot of success in just looking at one time frame.
Cool. Do you find that looking at the 1 hour chart kind of affects how much time you have in your day to do other stuff, or do you feel like the 1 hour chart is for you easy to look at and to kind of monitor it throughout the day?
To be honest, it provides me with a lot of free time, a lot of free time. And that is exactly what I wanted. So maybe, I was meant to actually work with 1 hour because I always had the idea that I would make money, but at the same time had freedom to do other things. Right? I didn't have the dream of just staying in front of the PC or day trading. I wouldn't say all day, but spending 4 or 5 hours a day trading. That wasn't the vision that I had. I had the vision of where I would I would be looking at the markets. I'll execute trades, but I would also have enough time in that day to do other things. And the 1 hour time frame really allows me to do that. In the beginning, of course, I didn't have much free time because I was constantly back testing. I was constantly in the charts. I was constantly monitoring things. But after a while, you kind of figure out the best process, the best procedure in which to carry out your trading. So now, depending on what the trend of the market is, I may come back once every 2 hours or once every hour. So, for example, let's say I've noticed a trend that is losing momentum, which means that it has a large likelihood or a large probability of changing direction. Instead of looking at that particular chart once every 3 hours, I'll look at it once every hour just to get an update, just to make sure that I'm on top. So the amount of time that I would spend or the frequency that I would have in looking at the charts would depend on the opportunity. It depends on where that opportunity is in terms of its stages. So, but yeah, overall, I have a lot of time. I think now I'm probably at a point of where if I put together all the time that I look at the market, I don't think it's more than an hour and a half. So maybe 2 minutes there, 3 minutes there, 5 minutes there, and so on. I don't think it's more than 2 hours and a half.
Cool. So, what would a day in your life look like then? What do you kind of follow as a routine to be able to take care of the
Yeah,
trading, but also kind of stay at top-notch level in terms of trading?
yeah, absolutely. So I wake up now. I actually set an alarm so to wake up at 6, and I'll look at the charts, and that could just be me waking up, glancing over my 4 pairs. If there's an opportunity there, it will be taken. But also, then at that point, I'll have an idea of when I should come back and look at the charts from 6 a.m. A lot of the times, I go back to bed. I'm not going to lie. I'll probably wake up around 8 or 9. I don't sleep very much, and then I go out for a walk. So understanding that a large amount of your trading is psychology. So depending on who you speak to, they will tell you that psychology is anywhere between 60 and 80% of your trading. I spend most of my time with my mind. Right? In the beginning, it was the technical side, but I spend most of my time now with my mind. So I'll go out for a walk, which is anywhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours. I'll come back, have breakfast, have a little bit chill, and then I'll read. So I read quite a lot of books. Right now, I'm thinking I'm reading Think and Grow Rich, but that's because I've just finished rereading Trading in the Zone. So Mark Douglas is a huge, somebody who's had a huge effect in my trading and also my life. And I've mentioned this before in other previous interviews. So I've read, although it's funny because I wish somebody like him had released more books, but I've only been able to find 2 books. So The Disciplined Trader, as well as Trading the Zone. So I've reread those books several times. So after reading, I would come back to the charts, have a look at what's going on. But at the same time, I'd spend some time backtesting, right? One of the benefits of logging your trades and having a trading journal and then analyzing your trades is that you see certain things, right? You see certain patterns there and there. So I would see those patterns, I would note them down, and then I would then go back to see whether those patterns are happening, right? So in terms of backtesting, I try and spend around 2.5 hours a day backtesting. And then the rest is with family and other bits and bobs. But I think I spend a lot more time with my mind rather than in the charts. And that's purely because, psychology is so important.
Yeah, and it does make a big difference. So you could like work hours in your system, but you won't always improve it all the time every day. So if you're on your mind, though, you can always improve every day. So that's a good point. You might like the book by Preston Barger if you like Mark Douglas. Preston Barger is also really good for that, from psychology aspect. So
yeah, I've come across him. I haven't read his book, but I've listened to a lot of his interviews. Right? A lot of it. And one of the things that I've learned to do now is I will listen to an interview. I will start to note down some of the advices that they give and so on, and then I would rate myself from those advices. So they will talk about the management of emotions, management of over trading, or management of the confidence that you may have in executing, or fear, or whatever it may be. And then I would rate myself. So at that particular aspect, out of 10, what am I? At the moment, what do I think? And if they mention something that I think I'm less than 5, then a lot of work would go into that. So it would go into my diary that, hey, you need to work on this. I've done that a lot with Brett, as well as Mark Douglas.
Nice. Yeah, this definitely helps. And this is a good point. So I know a lot of people are listening to podcasts, like they watch videos, they read books and stuff, and they have all these advice they could use, but they don't really use them, or they kind of use them for now, then they forget it after. So it's a really good idea to kind of keep track of them and know what to improve. That's really huge. I like it.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I've started to do with your Desire to Trade podcast is I've actually pushed it out to my team. I've actually put it out to the traders that I trade with. And what we do is so I'll post out a link, guys, let's watch this video. And then we'll get together on a Zoom call and talk about it. Because yes, we're all watching the same video, but different people will pick up different things.
Yeah.
Right? So by us getting together and sharing what we picked up, we understand several things. That we've already picked up different things, but also what's more important is you may have picked up something in a way that may be better than somebody else, or may not be as good as somebody else. So by sharing, you can confirm whether you are on the right track, or you can learn something new, right? Or you can see it from a better perspective, or you can just ask for another explanation, right? Or for another example that's similar to what has been spoken about. And together that has made them understand a lot of the contents that your viewers are sharing, that your viewers are sharing. And as a result of that, their own progress in trading has been going up the roof. Right? And again, they realize that no matter who they speak to, it's the 3 things, right? Strategy, risk management, psychology. And it's one thing for me to constantly say this psychology is important, but they are now seeing it, right? They're now seeing it from your big time traders that this truly isn't. And that was, again, what helped me really well in the beginning of my career, which is why I'm sharing it with them, in a sense of the Desire to Trade podcast did 3 things for me. Number one, it provided me very valuable information, which at the time, I think I was getting more pieces of the pie from different people. But number 2, it gave me an opportunity to look at somebody who was at a point of where I wanted to be, right? And most importantly, it gave me the route from where I was to where I wanted to go, which was trading education, right? And last but not least, it gave me the belief that it is possible to do it, right? It can be done. There are individuals that started from where you are now, right, to where you want to be, and here they are, many of them, right? So, and of course, me being a big fan of psychology, I understood and I know how important a belief is. When you believe you can do something, there's almost nothing that can stand in your way, or if it does stand in your way, you will remove that obstacle, and so on. So that's exactly what I did. So yeah, they are finding a lot of success from your content at the moment.
That's really cool to hear. And you've been working out as well, so the work you put in definitely makes a difference. But I'm really glad to hear that you got some value out of the podcast and the viewers on YouTube as well. That's really cool. So
Thank
where
you
can
for that.
people find you if they want to connect with you or reach out after this interview?
So the best way to get in contact with me personally, so I don't have an Instagram page, a personal Instagram page, but my trading community does. So at Trio FX on Instagram, you can connect to us through there. Send a message, it will come out to my team, and at some point it will filter itself over to me, and I'll be more than happy to connect and have a conversation at some point, and answer more questions if you do have any.
Awesome. And Franklin, what are your goals for the future? What are you trying to work on, and what are you trying to build in trading and other things as well?
I want to carry on helping other people because, again, I realize when I really sit back and have a look and try to judge or try to understand, how I've been so successful, I realized that a large amount of that was from individuals that gave valuable information for free. Right? I wouldn't be here with that. I can promise you. I would have probably gave up and done something else at some point because in the beginning, it's also really difficult to know what valuable information is if you don't know what it looks like. And I think that's one of the reasons why people are buying into their own courses or just not finding much success in general. So giving back is a big part of me and what I want to do. At the same time, I would love to go into managing private funds. So at the moment, obviously, I'm working with these companies, but I'd love to get to a point of where I'm an 8-figure trader managing private funds. I've seen a lot of traders do that, so I know it is possible. I believe I can, and I think I'm making phenomenal progress across that route in just being a better trader overall. And at some point, I think those opportunities will come my way, and I'm looking forward to them.
Awesome. What's the motivation to be able to scale up and get to 8 figures?
I think I've always liked the idea of a hedge fund, right? I've always loved the idea of basically being at the top end, right? Again, I think that comes from listening to so many high profile traders. I want to be like them, right? I want to be where they are. And it started from me wanting to be a 6-figure or managing accounts that is of a 6-figure range to a 7-figure where I am now. And I just want to push on. And I think I'd be a lot more comfortable around those ends to where I am now. Whether it will make me happier, I don't know. But I think I'm a lot more ambitious, and that's where my ambitions are lying at the moment. And that's something that at some point I will be picking your brain about in terms of how can I make that transition. Because understanding your story and what you were able to do and what you're doing now, it sounds like you're on the private side. So yeah, at some point I will reach out.
Yeah, definitely happy to help with anything you need for sure. No problem with that. And so I asked this question to all my guests at the end of the podcast, which is if you could give people one piece of advice on how they can become better traders, what would that one piece of advice be?
I can't stress enough on this piece of advice. And I think this is where I'd say probably 60. So the failure rate of trading is about 95%. But I don't believe every single one of them are not taking this piece of advice. I think they're sort of half taking this piece of advice. I think maybe 60% are actually completely not taking this advice. And this is the advice that I never took. This is the advice that I wish somebody gave me when I was starting to trade, when I first came across trading in 2015. And the advice is very simple: get a mentor, right? Get somebody who knows what they are doing, get somebody who has done what you are looking to do. It's very difficult for you to do something the right way on the very first attempt, because how are you supposed to know that this is the right way, right? I can't say it's impossible, but it's very difficult to do so. So you would just, you're searching for something that you don't really understand, right? So it's very difficult for you to find it. So yeah, find a mentor. What is a mentor? A mentor is somebody who has what you want, right? Somebody who has what you want. With somebody with that type of individual, there's a higher probability that they will know what it takes to for you to have that what you want. So find a mentor. I did that and it completely changed my trade. All of a sudden I had assurance, all of a sudden I had confidence, all of a sudden I had some sort of plan that I could follow. I wasn't just going left, right, going up, down. Like I was constantly moving up. And once you find one, listen to them. And I think this is what the other, so away from the 60%, the remaining 35%, they may have a mentor, but they're not following them. That person knows what they're doing. The reason they have what they have is because they know what it takes. If they didn't know, they wouldn't have what they have, right? So listen to that person, right? Do your best to listen to that person. They know what they're talking about. So find a mentor and listen to that mentor.
Good advice for sure. And that's something that made a big difference for me as well, to be able to have one of you, a few people to reach out to connect with all the time and get good advice. I appreciate that. So Franklin, thank you very much. I think it's been good advice for our listeners. I think people will enjoy this. And you guys let me know in the comment section your questions. As always, we'll be happy to connect you with Franklin. Just reach out to him and his team. And we'll catch you back here in the next episode of the Desire for Trade podcast pretty soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your time.